Hey everybody, Caleb here. I wanted to take a few minutes and update you on some stuff that we're going to be bringing you over the next couple weeks. So, if you've ever been reading one of those books of the Bible that are about Jesus' life, you might have noticed that a lot of times he's talking about like fishing and farming. And if you're anything like me, you're not a fisherman or a farmer. So, a lot of those examples and stories that Jesus is telling just go like right over your head. But if you were like there when Jesus was teaching all this stuff, all those things he talks about would have made a whole lot of sense to you because Jesus was just using, everyday examples in his teaching. And he wasn't just like trying to communicate like what are the best fishing practices or what's the best way to have the best garden possible. But he was actually using those everyday things to talk about like eternal things. So he's using those things to like explain what his kingdom is actually like and what it's like to live your life with him. And so there's this phrase, you might have heard of it before, but it's called the long and the short of it. In a way that you could like use that in a sentence, I guess, to make my English teacher happy, is if you were like, hey Caleb, how come it took a global pandemic for you to clean out your garage? I could say, well, the long and the short of it is blah, 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 and that would like describe the story. So I think that phrase fits these stories that Jesus tells really well because usually he has this really quick like story, but it has this really long meaning for like your whole eternity. So over the next 10 weeks, we've picked 10 of these stories and we're going to kind of unpack what those stories mean for us. But we're going to like mix it up a little bit. So instead of like just telling the story how Jesus told it, we're going to take those stories and we're going to apply it to like the 2020. So we're going to look at like how can we tell this story in a way that makes sense for us today, and then how can we take like the meaning of what Jesus meant that story to mean and apply it to us today. Now, I want to be really, really clear about this because I think it's super important. We're not taking Jesus's words and twisting them to mean whatever we want them to mean. We're actually doing the opposite. What we're doing is we're going, this is what Jesus means. This is the story that Jesus used to explain it. So how can I use our world so that we can tell a story that means the same thing that Jesus means? Okay, so if you want to get the most out of these videos as you're watching them with us, there are three things you can do. One, you can read the whole chapter the story is in. So if we look at a story in like Luke 12, just read all of Luke 12. Because a lot of times these little stories that Jesus tells will help you understand the rest of the chapter, or the rest of the chapter might help you understand that story. The second thing is, if you watch this with another person, that'll really help you figure out how you can just apply this to your life in different ways. That always works for me to just share what I'm learning with someone else. So that can be like your spouse. It could also be a friend or maybe even someone who's in your group. And then the third thing that you can do is just leave a comment on whatever platform you watch it on. Ask us questions in those comments there. We would love to, talk with you about what you're learning, what we're learning as we all go through this. So the first video should be out Wednesday. And that is the long and the short of it.